Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers, all the kind fellowship that I've come to know over the years, all the kind supporters that join us over the years and over the months, and we appreciate your support, and I just want you to know how much so, because without you, really I'd just be talking to myself, and I don't know what good that would be. So, and I love the dialogue, I love the conversation, and the discourse, the fellowship, and so I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate all the questions, because it makes me have to clarify my stance on so many positions, because the questions come from so many different perspectives, so many different angles, and from so many different populations of people, and so that makes it unique as far as challenging one to really know what you're talking about. And then also all the questions, forced me to go back and look up again where it was that I found certain specific information. And what the book that I'm going to cover tonight, The Ascension of Isaiah, is a pseudepigraphal book, and it's one of those gems. It's one of those books that a lot of people have not heard about, read about, know about. But if one does have a chance to study it, and if one does look into the text, there's great insight here into not only, which is the only text I've ever seen, and I believe Isaiah is the only one that was given a vision of how the Father's Son, only begotten Son, would enter into the flesh and come down from the seven heavens to fulfill that purpose and to assume that role, and to come through the Virgin Mary as he had special goals, special duties, special role to play. He was God in flesh, and he delivered the promise of salvation, eternal life. And another thing that a lot of people really don't know about, and that you can, if you go and you study the pseudepigraphal and apocryphal text, you'll learn about this as well, is that from the time of Adam until the time of the thief that died on the cross with Christ, those that died did not go to heaven or paradise. They went to Sheol, and they were confined and held and gathered and collected there together. And all of the patriarchs, all of the righteous, were like in a holding cell. And it was when Christ died on the cross that he descended into hell, that he took his sheep, his apostles, his patriarchs, those that had taught his word and prophesied about his coming. He took them into paradise. That was the first resurrection. And it talks about how a book called The Gospel of Nicodemus and The Gospel of Bartholomew, these are also pseudepigraphal texts, but they give you an insight into Christ's descent into hell, and how it was that he broke open the gates of brass, and how it was that Adam, then when they knew that he was coming to release them, he told Seth to tell the rest of those that were gathered, the rest of the patriarchs there, about how Christ had given him the prophecy of the time going all the way back to the time when he was banished out of paradise, transformed into flesh, placed on the wilderness of the earth in a place called the Cave of Treasures. Then Adam was given this prophecy that Christ would come into the flesh 5,500 years after Adam was kicked out of paradise. And this prophecy was fulfilled. And it also, he told Seth, because he told Seth about the prophecy and the vision that he had long ago, and what the word had told him. Seth then told the remaining those that were gathered about how Christ would come for them, that once he did die on the cross and die in the flesh, that he would resurrect them to eternal life and to the salvation that was promised within the commandments and within the word. And so all that was a fulfillment. And so I think it's important to, I'm not claiming, again, I don't make any judgments on any of these texts. I'm not saying that they're divine or, inspired in any way. I'm just saying that they are very interesting reading, and that they can add to the insight that the remainder, all of the other texts, give to us. Jazz says, thank you, and for all you do. I just I appreciate all of you, and it's my honor really to serve the Father and to do this in this capacity. I just give all glory to the Lord that I still have the ability and the capacity to do these kind of things, and the health and well-being. So I'm grateful for that, and I pray that for all of you as well. But this text that we're going to go into, I'm going to go ahead and set the premise of what we're going to go into, and then I'm going to focus specifically on the chapters that talk about the Antichrist, becoming Antichrist in that world system. And then also we're going to focus on the vision that Isaiah had. This is the vision for why he was killed. And just to set up the whole premise for the ascension of Isaiah, Isaiah was the prophet during the time of Hezekiah, the king, one of the kings of Israel. And his son, Manasseh, would be an usurper. He would be one to overthrow the focus of his father to worship the Most High. And Manasseh would, in the text, it gives description and specifically about how he gives himself over to, interesting enough, is Samael, the angel of death, which is also talked about in the Targums as being the serpent in the garden, the feathered serpent in the garden that deceived Eve. And we know Samael is one of the names of Yaldabaoth and one of the names of Satan. And this text also connects all of those entities together and also gives them linkage to Beliar, in which we know that's also another name of Satan and the forces of darkness, Baal. All these different, no matter what the names are, it's the same powers, principalities, rulers of darkness of this world that have been given. And this text will talk about how they've held authority here for very, very long time, and how the Lord gave them authority for only certain time, and that their time is almost up. Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil comes down to you with great wrath, knowing his time is short. So, all right. And so Samael, Satan, indwells Manasseh, and Manasseh rents the kingdom, brings in all kind of abomination, and establishes idol worship, sacrifice, and like I said, abomination, fornication, devil worship, and talks about how they got involved in magic and all kind of different things. We're going to go into the text anyway. But before we go into the part on the Antichrist, I'm going to read from the earlier chapters that talk about this connection between Samael and Manasseh, and why it was that Manasseh killed Isaiah, because Isaiah was sewn in half, according to many of the texts. And so, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to read every passage, but I am going to highlight specific passages from specific chapters and try to cover the most interesting points of the text. And then when you get time and space and opportunity, please do, check out the text for yourself, read it in its entirety, in its fullness, and get the other details which I won't be covering here. In chapter 1, verse 2, he called him into the presence of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, the prophet, and into the presence of Josab, the son of Isaiah, in order to deliver unto him the words of righteousness which the king himself had seen. and of the eternal judgments and torments of Gehenna, and the prince of this world, and of his angels, and his authorities, and his powers. And the words of the faith of the beloved, which he himself had seen in the 15th year of his reign during his illness. And so Isaiah comes to Hezekiah because Hezekiah has this particular vision. And it's also during the time of Hezekiah's reign that Isaiah tells him his son is going to be an usurper, and that he's going to rent the kingdom and give himself over to Satan and to Beliar. And that, that destroys Hezekiah in the last parts of his life. He prays that it's not going to be so, but this is the fulfillment of prophecy. Verse 8. And I will check the chat room periodically just to make sure if there's any questions on the text. Like I said, it's a pseudepigraphal text. Actually, I will paste a link. Yeah, let me do that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to paste a link to the text so that you can follow along. All right, let's find it here. All right, for those that have access to the internet and in the chat room, I am pasting the link. Oh, Jazz beat me to it. Thank you, Jazz. That's exactly what I was going to paste in. Much thanks. Hello, Math. All right. Continuing on with the Ascension of Isaiah. I'll tell you chapter and verse so that you can see where I'm going with this. Verse 8, chapter 1. And Samael, Malchira, will serve Manasseh and execute all his desire, and he will become a follower of Beliar rather than of me. Many in Jerusalem and in Judea he will cause to abandon the true faith, and Beliar will dwell in Manasseh, and by his hands I shall be sawn asunder. Skipping to verse 11. And Isaiah said unto him, the counsel of Samael against Manasseh is consummated, naught will avail thee. And on that day Hezekiah resolved in his heart to slay Manasseh his son. And Isaiah said to Hezekiah, the beloved had made of none effect thy design, and the purpose of thy heart will not be accomplished. For with this calling have I been called, and I shall inherit the heritage of the beloved. And so here you see Hezekiah, he decides to kill his son rather than allow him to come into, kingship and to rule his kingdom and to lead Jerusalem astray. And then Isaiah tells him not to do so, but that all of this is for purpose. Going to chapter 2. And it came to pass after that Hezekiah died and Manasseh became king, that he did not remember the commandments of Hezekiah his father, but forgat them. And Samael abode in Manasseh and clung fast to him. And Manasseh forsook the service of God of his father, and he served Satan and his angels and his powers. He turned aside the house of his father, which had been before the face of Hezekiah, from the words of wisdom and from the service of God. And Manasseh turned aside his heart to serve Beliar. For the angel of lawlessness, who is the ruler of this world, is Beliar, whose name is Mantanbukas. And he delighted in Jerusalem because of Manasseh. And he made him strong in apostatizing Israel, and in the lawlessness which were spread abroad in Jerusalem. Verse 5. and witchcraft and magic increased, and divination and auguration and fornication, and the persecution of the righteous by Manasseh and Belcherar and Tobiah the Canaanite and John of Anathoth and by Zadok the chief of the works. The rest of the acts, behold, are written in the book of Kings of Judah and Israel. And when Isaiah, the son of Amoz, saw the lawlessness which was being perpetuated in Jerusalem, and the worship of Satan and his wantonness, he withdrew from Jerusalem and settled in Bethlehem of Judah. And there also there was much lawlessness. And withdrawing from Bethlehem, he settled on a mountain in a desert place. And Micaiah the prophet, the aged Ananias, and Joel and Habakkuk, and his son Josab, and many of the faithful who believed in the ascension into heaven, withdrew and settled on the mountain. They were all clothed with garments of hair. They were all prophets. They all had nothing with them but were naked, and all lamented with a great lamentation because of the going astray of Israel. And these eat nothing save wild herbs which they gathered on the mountains. And having cooked them, they lived thereon together with Isaiah the prophet. They spent 2 years of days on the mountains and in the hills. And after this, whilst they were in the desert, there was a certain man in Samaria named Belcherar of the family of Zedekiah, the son of Chenan, a false prophet, whose dwelling was in Bethlehem. Now Hezekiah, the son of Chananiah, who was the brother of his father, and in the days of Ahab, king of Israel, had been the teacher of the 400 prophets of Baal, had himself smitten and reproved Micaiah, the son of Amoz the prophet. And he, Micaiah, had been reproved by Ahab and cast into prison. He was with Zedekiah the prophet. They were with Hezediah, the son of Ahab, king in Samaria. And also Elijah the prophet of Tebon of Gilead was reproving Ahaziah in Samaria, and prophesied regarding Ahaziah that he should die on his bed of sickness, and that Samaria should be delivered into have the hand of Manasseh because of the slain prophets of God. I'm going to skip just a little bit forward. We're going to go to chapter 3, verse 13. And this is when they begin to persecute Isaiah. Because what happens is this guy, Belcherar, he becomes a false accuser. And he accuses Isaiah and his prophets, and the prophets of the Lord, of being liars and of raising sedition against Israel and Judah, because the Lord had been telling them to prophesy against the nations and against the people, and to call them unto repentance and to come back unto the protection of the Lord. And they would not. They reveled in their idolatry and their sacrifice and their fornication and their lawlessness. They reveled in it. They loved it, and they conspired unto the death. All right, verse 13. We'll check the chat room real quick. All right. Yes, the link is in the chat room for those that would like to follow along. We are reading from the Ascension of Isaiah, and we're about to get into some really interesting parts. This book, just to make quick commentary, this book has some information on the Antichrist that, in my opinion, is revealed nowhere else. Nowhere else. And so, it's going to be interesting. Hold on for the ride. Verse 13, chapter 3. For Beliar was in great wrath against Isaiah by reason of the vision, and because of the exposure wherewith he had exposed Samael, and because through him the going forth of the beloved from the seventh heaven had been made known, and his transformation, and his descent, and the likeness into which he should be transformed, that is, the likeness of a man, and the persecution wherewith he should be persecuted, and the torturers wherewith the children of Israel should torture him, and the coming of his 12 disciples, and the teaching, and that he should before the Sabbath be crucified upon the tree. And he should be crucified together with wicked men, and that he should be buried in the sepulchre. The 12 who were with him should be offended because of him, and the watch of those who watched the sepulchre. The descent of the angel of the Christian church, which is in the heavens, whom he will summon in the last days. And that Gabriel, the angel of the Holy Spirit, and Michael, the chief of the holy angels, on the third day will open the sepulchre. And the beloved, sitting on their shoulders, will come forth and send out his 12 disciples. And they will teach all the nations and every tongue of the resurrection of the beloved. And those who believe in his cross will be saved. And in his ascension into the seventh heaven whence he came. And that many who believe in him will speak through the Holy Spirit. Many signs and wonders will be wrought in those days. And afterwards, on the eve of his approach, his disciples will forsake the teachings of the 12 apostles, and their faith, and their love, and their purity. There will be much contention on the eve of his advent and his approach. And in those days, many will love office, though devoid of wisdom. There will be many lawless elders and shepherds dealing wrongly by their own sheep, and they will ravage them, owing to their not having holy shepherds. I want to stop here because I want to make a comment on this particular passage. I have seen great contention among the church leaders, you would say, or those that many would consider as being blessed in discernment and as having eyes to see, but that there's great contention over different issues and which really have no bearing on salvation and which really shouldn't matter one way or the other. But there is this weirdness. And so another thing that I want to warn you about, and then I'll make comment on this, is that a lot of what has been created to be the new alternative news, the new mainstream news, the leaders of certain conspiracy or truth movements or there are a lot of individuals that are compromised, that are ruling and leading from they are marching by orders. They're also puppets pulled on a string. And so you have to be careful in this day and age, especially for those of you that are so new to truth, that are so new to the conspiratorial nature of the New World Order, and also the supernatural nature of the war in heaven that is still ongoing, that is bearing fruition here through the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and that this battle is still daily taking place on the streets of America and the rest of the world, and that there's spiritual weirdness unlike we've experienced since the days of Noah that is soon to be released upon the world, and that we're going to be witness and experience things that were considered, well, just mythology or lunatic fringe. And actually this text will make mention of that as we read further into it. But it will also talk about how rare truth is in this world, and how so many that are considered the leaders, that are considered the authorities of the church, how so many of them are wolves in sheep's clothing, and how they're usurpers, and how they're going to lead astray their flock. Because that's why the strong delusion is going to be so successful in deceiving even the most elect, if it were possible, is because those that are leading the flock, that are leading the sheep, that are tending the herd, that should be making people aware of all of these esoteric aspects of what we're dealing with in this reality, in this world. The crazy nature of the enemy that we're fighting. The whole Ephesians 6 thing. And so many are waking up to this, but be careful, people. Be really careful. And this goes for myself as well. Doubt everything that I bring forth, everything that I say to you, all the things that I read, or even, that I base my opinion on. Go study these things for yourself. Formulate your own theories, your own opinions. Write your own books. Be your own authority. Develop your personal relationship with the Father and the Son. Because that's what real religion is. It's not a theology that remains separate from you, something that is to be put on a pedestal and worshipped, one day a week, and forget it the rest of the time. That's not what it's about at all. The Lord, you can know Him in such a personal way. You can speak to Him every day, all the time, and everything. Give thanks. Be grateful to Him for all the blessings of life. And I just thank Him all the time for everything. Just try to remain grateful. But and it's not anything that's special unto just myself or any of those others that have been blessed in discernment. And so many people are now. And so many people are developing and trying to walk with the Lord, because you can sense the lateness of the hour. And so there is a great awakening happening. But know that you have to be wary on source and information. And like I said, that includes myself and everybody else. But just be careful, because so much has been compromised now, and there's so much that, even it speaks of Satan coming dressed as an angel of light. So there you go. All right, continuing on with the text. Check the chat room real quick. The truth will set us free. Yes, Jazz, it absolutely will. All right. Okay, I want to read this, what Matt says. What I would say to the new babes: get to know your father, his son, for yourself, and don't be so quick to join some organization, because many do not have your best interests at heart. Absolutely. To get to know them, study. It will lead you further into knowledge, wisdom, and understanding than just in joining some organization. And I agree with you, Matt. It's my opinion. I believe many are being called out of the churches. They're being called to go into the prayer closet, to get on your knees and to be alone in your study, and to know your truth first before going to try and share it with a bunch of others that, have no idea other than the formulated opinions of other people that they've studied for so long. So many people would rather study the words of others that have studied the Word rather than read the Word and study it for themselves. And why? That makes no sense to me. But I guess, people desire leaders. I say be a leader. All right. And there will be many lawless elders and shepherds dealing wrongly by their own sheep, and they will ravage them owing to their not having holy shepherds. Many will change the honor of the garments of the saints for the garments of the covetous, and there will be much respect of persons in those days, and lovers of the honor of this world. There will be much slander and vainglory at the approach of the Lord, and the Holy Spirit will withdraw from many. And there will not be in those days many prophets, nor those who speak trustworthy words, save one here and there in diverse places, on account of the spirit of error and fornication and of vainglory and of covetousness, which shall be in those who will be called servants of that one, and in those who will receive that one. And there will be great hatred in the shepherds and elders towards each other. For there will be great jealousy in the last days. For everyone will say what is pleasing in his own eyes. They will make of none effect the prophecy of the prophets which were before me. And these my visions also will they make of none effect, in order to speak after the impulse of their own hearts. Chapter 4. And now Hezekiah and Josab, my son, these are the days of the completion of the world. After it is consummated, Beliar, the great ruler, the king of this world, will descend, who hath ruled it since it came into being. Yea, he will descend from his firmament in the likeness of a man, a lawless king, the slayer of his mother, who himself even this king. will persecute the plant which the 12 apostles of the Beloved have planted. Of the 12, one will be delivered into his hands. This ruler, in the form of that king, will come, and there will come, and there will come with him all the powers of this world. And they will hearken unto him in all that he desires. And at his word, the sun will rise at night, and he will make the moon to appear at the 6th hour. And all that he had desired, he will do in the world. He will do and speak like the Beloved, and he will say, I am God, and before me there has been none. And all the people in the world will believe him. They will sacrifice to him, and they will serve him, saying, This is God, and beside him there is no other. And they, greater number of those who shall have been associated together in order to receive the Beloved, he will turn aside after him. He will set up his image before him in every city. And he shall bear sway 3 years and 7 months and 27 days. Many believers and saints, having seen him for whom they were hoping, who was crucified, Jesus the Lord Christ, after that I, Isaiah, had seen him who was crucified and ascended, and those also who were believers in him. Of these, few in those days will be left as his servants, while they flee from desert to desert, awaiting the coming of the Beloved. And after 1,332 days, the Lord will come with his angels and with the armies of the holy ones from the 7th heaven, with the glory of the 7th heaven. And he will drag Beliar into Gehenna, and also his army. He will give rest of the godly whom he shall find in the body in this world, and the sun will be ashamed. And to all who because of their faith in him have execrated Beliar and his king. But the saints will come with the Lord with their garments, which are now stored up on high in the 7th heaven. With the Lord they will come, whose spirits are clothed. They will descend and be present in the world. And he will strengthen those who have been found in the body together with the saints. In the garments of the saints, and the Lord will minister to those who have kept watch in this world. And afterwards, they will turn themselves upwards in their garments. Their body will be left in this world. Then the voice of the Beloved will in wrath rebuke the things of heaven, and the things of earth, and the things of earth, and the mountains, and the hills, and the cities, and the deserts, and the forests, and the angel of the sun, and that of the moon, and all things wherein Beliar manifested himself, and acted openly in this world. and there will be a resurrection and a judgment in their midst in those days. And the beloved will cause a fire to go forth from him, and it will consume all the godless, and they will be as though they had not been created. All right, I want to stop there for just a second. Review a couple points here. For those that have not read or heard about this text, what do you think about these Antichrist references? I'm going to get you to let me know what you think in the chat room, as far as, because there's some interesting parts here that you can tell that they're Antichrist references, because there's so much that is also associated to other connections where we find, mentions of the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians, different places. There's also a book called The Apocalypse of Ezekiel, I believe it is. The Apocalypse of Ezekiel. I'm going to see first. Let me type this in the search bar. But I believe, if this is the correct book, this also is one of those pseudepigraphal books that gives references to the Antichrist. So let me see if I can pull this up for you, because this also has some interesting information. All right. Found it. So let's see if we can get a text here. Yeah, I'm not going to go too deeply into this text. As a matter of fact, I'm going to paste a link to it so that you can check it out for yourself. But this text also, Jazz says, wow, amazing as far as the text. Sally says, I pray that I am not fooled. I pray that daily as well, sister. And all of us really should pray that. Even the Lord's Prayer, that we are not led astray, not led into evil. So, yes, pray that. Okay, so here's a link to the Apocalypse of Ezekiel. You can bring it up for yourself. This also has some information as to the, I don't know if this is a specific text, but it has information also. And I've done shows on that, and I'll look into it again. But we're going to continue on with the Ascension of Isaiah, because I want to finish up this text before we run out of time. But you can see in the particular references of this particular section, and for those that are just now joining us, we are reading from chapter 4, is the specific chapter where it gives insight into the Antichrist and talks about All right, sorry people, got kicked off. The internet reset, so I'm going to let you know in the chat room. At least it reset fast. I'm back, Jazz, just want you to know. All right, good. All right, I apologize again. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I wish it wouldn't, but... All right, continuing on with the Ascension of Isaiah. I was talking about... I was just talking about the different references and how it cites this Antichrist as going to be a supernatural being, much like Revelation talks about it being the one that was but is not but is again, something like that. And it also gives him the title of Apollyon and Abaddon, the destroyer. And we know that Apollyon, Abaddon, that they, these are the fallen angel gods, the high pantheon of these fallen angel gods, and that it will be a supernatural being, but that it says here he will indwell the body of a human, and also that this person will be a king, which is interesting in that that's the work of my good friend Dr. Joy, who I want to ask everybody to pray for Dr. Joy and her husband Mel. He's been having a few health issues and a few health problems, and that has been weighing on both of them, and on her ability to be able to do her work as well and to bring forth information to us, because she is a true blessing. And for those that don't know, Dr. Joy is in process of doing another book. She is also contracted through Tate Publishing, and her book will come out a month or two after mine, I believe. My book should be released in November. Her book should be released in December or January, depending on how far she gets with the work that she's doing. But please do keep her in mind and in your prayers and in your heart. She's a very special lady, very kind friend, and I'm really, really honored to know her and to have come to have and share the relationship that we do. Okay, but just reading that one particular passage, because Dr. Joy's work is connected to Prince William as being, the unfolding of that he will be the one that will be indwelt, much like Manasseh was in this particular book, by the spirit of Beliar, Satan, Samael. It's all the same force, all the same power, principality. And so here it says, after it is consummated, Beliar, the great ruler, the king of this world, will descend, who hath ruled it since it came into being. Yea, he will descend from his firmament in the likeness of a man, a lawless king, the slayer of his mother. That's interesting, huh? Who himself even this king. So does this passage mean that somehow, at some point, sometime, I'm just speculating here, that Prince William will kill his mother? I'm just saying. It says, descend from his firmament in the likeness of a man, a lawless king, the slayer of his mother. And if he's to assume rule, well, we know that Queen Elizabeth's got to be out of the picture, out of the way. I'm just speculating. Don't know. This is just one of those interesting passages that makes you think. And the last passage, who himself even this king. All right, and then it talks about how he will be the one that declares himself to be God, and that he's going to persecute the apostles and the saints, and he's going to declare himself as God, and that there is none before him. It says all the people in the world will believe in him. They will sacrifice to him. They will serve him, saying, this is God, and beside him there is no other. So, anyways, that's going to be interesting. And another part that is really interesting before we move on, it says, and there will be the power of his miracles in every city and region. He will set up his image before him in every city. And this is really interesting because we know the whole 3.5 year reign of the Antichrist. And here it says, he shall bear sway 3 years and 7 months, 27 days. 3.5 years. What is interesting to me, though, is that even in this prophecy, it gives revelation that the Lord is coming and that he will be the one that eradicates Beliar and the fallen angels and their whole deception that they have been playing out as gods, as the gods of humanity, as the creators, the benefactors. Because that gig is up. That gig is up. That strong delusion, even though it's going to sway so many and it's going to lead so many astray, I give so much thanks and praise to the Lord that there are those that are learning about it and the strong delusion and how it connects to the fallen angels and the return of the Nephilim. I got to make mention of this too. There was a writer named G.H. Pember, and he wrote about the world before the worlds or something. I'll look it up. But anyways, Tom Horn is about to release some of his books that were written a long time ago. And basically, Pember, and he was an author back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, during that time, that he spoke about and speculated upon all these things that we are now talking about. And he made mention of one of the signs, one of the major signs of the return of the Lord would be the forthcoming loosening of the locust army and the return of the Nephilim. And, just about 2 or 3 years ago when myself and others started covering this issue on the radio and talking about this broadcast, and many, there's many people that are talking about these things now. But when we first started to speak on these things, it was still relatively lunatic fringe. It was still relatively relegated to the stuff of fantasy, stuff of mythology, which every day we are coming to know. It seems to be confirmed more and more that, the stuff of mythology is actually the stuff of reality, the stuff of fantasy, and what seems to be biblical children's stories have so much truth and so much factuality contained with them that every day there's more and more confirmation being brought forth. And so this guy Pember, let me go ahead and look up his name too. I think his name is George Pember. I would, and you can still get hold of some of his older books. They're just a little bit more expensive. But Tom Horn is, I believe, next week or sometime really soon, is releasing some of his work and making it available to the public again. And I think that's a great service, a really great service. And so I would invite you. Matter of fact, let me go to Raiders News, and then I'll get the link for you, because I do believe it's there. Yeah, actually, there is a link. If you go to Raiders News Network, there's a link on the left side, Earth's Earliest Ages. Now, this was a book put forth by Pember, back in the, I can't even remember when it was, but a long time ago. And they're making this available again. In 2 weeks, it says coming in 2 weeks. After 130 years, his work is being released again. Oh, I want to read just one quick quote, because this guy nailed it. And he was way ahead of his time. And see, there's been many, many people over the centuries, over history, that have made these connections. The Lord has woken up many people to the truth and to the revelation of these things. The elitists have been hoarding this information and this knowledge amongst themselves for thousands of years. The knowledge of Cain and his bloodline, his seed line, they even considered him to be the father of their bloodline. I mean, those things, even though they're still denied by mainstream churchianity, there's so many secrets now that are being revealed, and that you can come to discernment on, so that you can know what's really happening here, and how you fit into all of this, because we have very important part to play in all of this, each one of us. We have special role. We are not relegated to some boring life here upon this planet that is meaningless and randomly makes no sense and has no meaning or purpose. That's so far from the truth. Every moment of every day, there are no coincidences, there are no accidents. Everything is for a reason. And all of that is being played out now before us, because the Lord is going to make everybody aware of these things. And whether you want to study them and know the truth on them or not, it's going to be in everybody's faces, and people are going to have to at least ponder, at least begin to question themselves as to the relevancy of how this information might affect their lives. Because most people think that all of this matters nothing to them, has no part to play, or no bearing to play on their lives. But I'm telling you, this has everything to do with knowledge and salvation, and understanding why it was that Christ came into the flesh, and understanding who Christ really is, as the Word, as the first Adam, as the Son of God who's given dominion. He's the light of the entire universe. Anyway, this quote, Earth's Earliest Ages by G.H. Pember. He said this: the influences of the Spirit of God are even now in process of withdrawal, as he prepares for that departure from earth which will leave it open for Nephilim, sevenfold worse than those who formerly dwelt in it, to enter and for a short season to work their will upon the human race. Then will all the Nephilim who are yet at liberty be among men, and will quickly make them feel the meaning of that awful utterance: woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And that's where we are, people. That's where we are. We are at the woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. The devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. He knows judgment's coming. He knows that Christ is returning. He knows that the people, the flock, those that do not serve him, that they are going to be led into paradise and given unto salvation, and that they will inherit the first estate that he and his angels so long ago abandoned and rebelled against, all for the sake of lusting after the daughters of man? Was it really worth it? That's the question. Well, I guess it was, because he's making no change to his plan, and he's only accelerating the agenda. We know he's placing together the New World Order, and that all that's coming into play. That soon, if not already, global government and United Nations standing troops, peacekeeping troops, whatever you want to call them, that they're going to put into play that whole agenda for martial law, for the expansion of the Patriot Act, for the further continuance in oppression of the people. They've already got it indoctrinated into law that they can legally detain American citizens indefinitely, torture us. Obama now has authority to assassinate American citizens even on domestic soil. I mean, where's the America that we once knew? What's the reality of the nightmare scenario that is America today? We've got the military and the police now placing drones into the sky, and armed drones that can assassinate at the push of a button anybody they so willfully desire. This is the America that our kids are growing up with. They have no rights. There's no habeas corpus. There's no Bill of Rights. There's no Constitution. They can't even go to the library and check out anything of interest just to look into, because all that's being monitored, and that's the insanity of the situation. Hello, Mama B. Welcome, sister. Welcome all the new listeners, because we are picking up a lot of new people from a lot of different places. I welcome all of you from wherever you may be. And thank you, for your fellowship and for your friendship. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on, because we're going to run out of time. But I thought what was interesting as well, just before we move on, is that it says in this text that he was the one that had ruled this Beliar, this Apollyon, Abaddon, that he had ruled since this world came into being. All right, and how the Lord's going to judge all things. All right, now we're going to skip to the vision of Isaiah and move on a little bit further. All right, this is, I'm going to talk about real quick, just the judgment. Just so you know, Isaiah, in the time that he was being murdered, when he was being sawed in half by Manasseh, he was receiving a vision, and he suffered no pain. He did not endure pain in such a way that, it was torment or torture. And I think that's of real interest, because if you study another lady named Patty Schubert, I believe her name is Patricia Schubert, or she has done a lot of work with certain Satanists and certain Satan groups, and she's done research into victim sacrifice and ritual sacrifice, and talked to some of these satanic elders and leaders, and they have given testimony to her as to how they will kidnap a Christian and for a evening festivities, they would slowly torture that individual over time until they, hyped up the person's blood with all of those endorphins, and then they would ritually sacrifice this individual and then drink the blood, sometimes consume the flesh of these individuals. That's the kind of sick, perverted, psychotic behavior that is associated to Satanists. And these kind of things do happen. You can read Micah chapter 3. The Lord even gives a vision of his people being flayed and skinned and chopped up for the pot so that they can be eaten. All right. But Isaiah was absorbed in the vision of the Lord, and though his eyes were open, he saw them not. And Belcherah spake thus to Isaiah, Say what I say unto thee, and I will turn their hearts, and I will compel Manasseh, and the princes of Judah, and the people of all Jerusalem to reverence thee. And Isaiah answered and said, So far as I have utterance, I say, Damned and accused be thou in all thy powers in all thy house. For thou canst not take from me aught save the skin of my body. This Beliar did to Isaiah through Belchior and Manasseh. For Samael was very wrathful against Isaiah from the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, on account of the things which he had seen regarding the beloved, and on account of the destruction of Samael, which he had seen through the Lord, while Hezekiah his father was still king. And he did according to the will of Satan. And so here the story is told that Isaiah was persecuted, was murdered, was killed because he was the one that was given a vision and taken up to the seven heavens. And while being in the seven heavens, not only did he see the other patriarchs and the other apostles, prophets, and that they had garments of glory, but they were not yet given crowns and thrones. They were not yet given crowns and thrones. And Isaiah sees how the Father appoints his Son to descend from the seven heavens and to quietly slip down and through the heavens until he assumes form in a body of flesh, and that it would be through this form and through immaculate conception through the Virgin Mary and through his entrance into flesh of humanity that he would be the one that would destroy the plans of the powers and the principalities, the archons, and that it would be his entrance into the flesh and his death and resurrection that would bring salvation and a total forgiveness of sins to all of humanity, and that salvation would be extended even unto the Canaanites, even unto the Gentile nations, even unto those born into the elitist Illuminati families. If so desired, you can have part in the blood of Christ and in the covering, in the redemption, and in the salvation of Christ. Because he was the Passover lamb. He was the fulfillment of the law. He was the prophesied one. He came in, did his part, and then ascended in great glory. Because Isaiah, in his vision, he was shown how the Lord would come to the earth without being known, quietly, almost as a thief in the night. And that after his death and resurrection, after his defeating of death, and this was also when he placed Satan into Sheol himself. Satan was placed in the Sheol in the resurrection of Christ. It talks about that in the Gospel of Nicodemus, Gospel of Bartholomew. Read it for yourself. But that Christ in that moment took all of his beloved up into paradise. And that was the same promise as he fulfilled it for them. It's the same promise that he offered and extended to all of us. All right. We're going to read a little bit of the vision. I don't want to run out of time, but we'll try to. Okay, Jazz is talking about a bill to make it illegal for the U.S. government to kill us. And this is interesting. U.S. government proposes law making it illegal for them to kill you. And I guess this is a bill that is against the chemtrails. And so, Jazz, who was it that proposed this bill? Same person that proposed the bill tried to do something with chemtrails also. Forgot what bill that was. Oh, okay, so you're talking about the assassinations, all right, and that this individual also came out against the chemtrails, right? Okay, just wanted to be clear. Right. And G4 says that Obama was selected and not elected. And it's the same thing. I want to say this again, too, and I don't usually go into politics anymore. It used to be a great interest of mine. It was a place that I put a lot of my passion and a lot of my time until I realized the fallacy of the false left-right Democratic Republican system. They're both same sides of, they're the same sides of the same coin. Two separate sides of the same coin, and you get nothing different. The illusion of choice has been, how America settles for just having two choices, Democratic, Republican, is beyond me. We've got all these flavors of Baskin Robbins and ice cream. These two parties don't represent in any way the collective voice or even the partial voice of any, many groups of America. These two groups are so out of control that they are out of touch with America. They have no idea as to what we really stand for as a people. And if it were up to the people, this would still be a great nation. But because of the leaders, and because we were not a vigilant citizenry, and because it doesn't matter anyways, with the electronic voting machines, and really politics is just an illusion, people. It's a dog and pony show. You have to think of politics as like the Kentucky Derby. You go to the Kentucky Derby, it's like the whole race, the political race, is the Kentucky Derby. Everybody's watching the show. We're all putting on our best dressed clothes, going to the show to watch all the race, the horses run, and everybody's going to bet on a certain horse, and everybody's hoping a certain horse wins or whatever. But whether that horse wins or not doesn't matter, has no bearing upon the real situation. And the real situation is that those horses are just representatives of the owners, that they're just vehicles, that they're just really puppets on a string, much like our president. And so if you really think about politics in the same way, that's really what it is, people. It is all an illusion. We are given the illusion of choice. But really, it doesn't matter who votes, how many vote. It matters who counts the vote, who tallies the vote, who sums it up. And we don't even have a popular vote anymore. We have an electoral college system. They've already usurped our right for every person to have one vote and a representative say. And so we only have the illusion of choice. Jazz says that the health care bill has a microchip in it. I would also say, Jazz, that the health care bill has not only where they want to put microchips in you and into all the children that are going to be born under this new bill. So, yeah, you better look into it because there's a lot of evil associated to what Obama is doing, it doesn't matter. Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, they're just suckers too. They're just puppets on a string too. Obama, Romney, it doesn't matter. They're the same people. They're controlled by the same people. They dance to the same tune. You want to know who's really pulling the string? You look into the Bilderbergers. Look into the Bilderberger elite and that whole group of multinational, transnational elitists that come together to decide on the collective fate of humanity once a year. Now look into it. They have been deciding the direction of the world for a long, long time. We're given the illusion of truth, of choice, the illusion of, being able to have self-representation where people that we elect into office actually speak for, and, that is all an illusion. There is no representative government. There's a representative government for the lobbyists and for the people that can afford to pay for, some lobby time. Math says the election, if there is one, that the votes will be tabulated by Spain. What? Math also says there will be a time very soon that they will come against those who know the truth and ban the Bible. I would agree with you, Math. Jazz says she totally agrees too. That time is coming. It's already in the documents. It's already in the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act. They consider Christians, patriots, constitutionalists as domestic terrorists. Yeah, so who does that let you know as far as who the government thinks the enemy is? Look into it. It's a sad time, and all I can do really in the last few minutes that we have, I can't go into this text. All I can do is just pray for our country, because I love America. I love what this country used to stand for. I love that it was founded on, even though we know all the way back to the beginning, Freemasons were part of all the establishment, even with the layout of Washington, D.C., blah, blah, blah. It's like even with Israel coming into being a nation again in 1948, and even though the Rothschilds and the Illuminati, the United Nations, and a lot of people were behind pulling all that together, nothing is accomplished unless the Lord allows it. And nothing will be allowed to go forth and to come into being unless it is for the greater glory of the Lord at some point in specific time. And it may not seem like it right now, but that was a sign for our generation. We are the fig tree generation, people. We are the ones that are going to witness the second coming of our Lord. We're the ones that are going to have men's hearts fail them for what is coming upon the earth. We're the ones that could be deceived, the elect that could be deceived if it were possible. So, Jazz says, I think they are planning to destroy the USA. Yeah, I would agree. In fact, I believe Revelation 17, Revelation 18, with the destruction of the whore of Babylon, the destruction of Mystery Babylon, the new Mystery Babylon, that is the United States, and specifically New York City. And that our judgment is coming in a single day and a single hour. When that will be, I don't know. I say, be right with the Lord yesterday. Get ready for all these things yesterday, because time is short, people. Time is very, very short. Matt says, I hope this is the last election. Well, you know, what is interesting is that there's been several people that have brought forth prophecies that talk about Obama as being the last president. And not only that, but it also talks about this Pope, Benedict, that there's going to be one Pope after him, Peter the Roman. Tom Horn has been on the forefront of this issue again, and he's got some information out in a new book called Petrus Romanus, which you can look into, which talks about all these things. But it seems like everything is merging on this day and age, in this time and space. Everything. And so, who knows? Whether it's going to be tomorrow, yesterday, 1 year, 7 years, who knows? But we do know that things are going to play out on a grand scale, just by what the Word says. Now, also, I want to make one other comment here before we go to music. Supposedly, the 17th of August is supposed to be the closest point where Nibiru, if it indeed is out there, I have no eyes on to confirm, that it's supposed to, again, interfere with and interact with the earth, according to some people, whether this is disinformation, because there's been several other reports released saying the same thing. So just be wary that from August 17th to September 28th, there's possibility of near Nibiru passing, flyby. There was warnings given to the DOD and continuity of government personnel, so just keep that in mind. God bless all. Have some food and some water, some firearms, some different things in preparation, but first and foremost, get right with the Lord. In Yahushua Yahweh's name, amen.
A number of things that I've heard from people in the Pentagon, that the buzzword in the secret of secrets in the Pentagon is the Sumerian gods are returning, and that's what they're referring to as that whole area that Peter's
Wow. Can you repeat that again, just in case anybody missed it? The buzzword
in the Pentagon, in the military circles that are in the know about the cover-up here, they kind of, in whispered tones, talk about the return of the Sumerian gods. And they're talking about what we would call aliens or fallen angels returning into the Middle East, into Old Sumer area.
The Anunnaki.
Well, could be.
Under the other ancient names.
Do you think that has anything to do with why we're in a...
God bless all. Good night.